And welcome back to New York Cold Cases. Today's case is about a young female who was viciously murdered in her own living room. Her brother needs some closure because he's the only one living in her family. She had no kids because she was still a newlywed. She was only married for 2 years before she was murdered in her living room. Her name is Carol Ann Fitzmaurice. She was born on May 14th, 1947, and she was only 23 years old when she was murdered in her living room. One good thing was she wasn't sexually assaulted, nor was she robbed. So there is no motive to this case about why she was killed. At the time, she just graduated nursing school and was working for a doctor in town. 2 years ago, in Allegheny County in upstate New York, she was found by her husband at 6 p.m. on October 20th, 1974. I'll get into a little bit of a backstory about Carol before I really talk about her murder. Carol was born on May 14th, 1947 to the loving parents of Gerald A. Manzo and Catherine Manzo. They have now both passed on. They went to their graves never knowing who murdered their daughter. She does have a brother, but he doesn't talk about the murder case as much. He won't give interviews. His name is not even public knowledge. And if it is, I did not find it in any of my research that I would look in, and I looked. He was older than her, but that's all I know. I know he still lives in the area. He doesn't want to move out of that area. That is his home. And he does want to find closure to this case. Her father was a decorated World War II hero. He was a medic in the army, and during the war, he was all over Europe. Then when he came back to the USA after the war, he worked at Dresser Rand plant in Olean County, not too far away from their home. When Carol was born, she was a very healthy baby girl and to loving parents. Her mother was a secretary at the Cattaraugus County Health Commission. So that's where Carol got her love of nursing and medical field from both her parents. The sad part is that she was taken from us and from her husband way too soon. Carol and her husband Daniel married 2 years prior to the murder and was only living in their home for a year. The home that she was murdered in was actually located on another plot of land. They moved that house to the the corner of 5 Mile Road because they loved that area and was also close to where she grew up. She didn't want to be too far away from her parents. She was her father's princess. They wanted that house to be their forever house. When they got the house, they also ended up getting a dog because they wasn't ready to settle down yet. and have kids. They thought they had all the time in the world to actually have a child, not realizing that a year after them getting the house, she will be murdered in the very same living room. In 1970 was the last year she was alive. She was just finishing nursing school and actually just got a job with Dr. F. Gerald Webster of Olin osteopathic. If you don't know what an osteopathic doctor is a doctor that actually doesn't study in just one medical field. He actually studies in every single medical field. He knows a little bit about everything. So she thought that would actually be good training. So she's not just focused on one kind of medicine. On October 20th, 1970, she went to work. She woke up actually, kissed her husband goodbye before he left for work, then got ready herself to go in for work. She was at the office from 8 o'clock to about 12 noon. That was the last time the doctor seen her. She said she was gonna go out and have lunch with her parents, which she did. She was last seen about 1 p.m. by her mother at a little family diner out there. She said she wanted to go home, clean the house, and start getting dinner ready and prepping dinner before her husband came home, which she did. No neighbors actually heard a sound. The dog wasn't barking. Nothing. So nobody realized what was happening inside her house when she reached her house. The police think it's either someone that she knows or that she left her door unlocked and he walked right in. I will put a sketch above my head right here or about how he looks according to some witnesses. The police think that she was murdered before she even started prepping dinner because they found an uncooked chicken in the oven and the oven wasn't on. So anywhere between, say, about 1:30 to 6 p.m. when her husband walked in and found her on the living room floor is the time frame that she was murdered. Witnesses do place a red or a maroon color fast sports type sedan 200 yards away from her house and facing the wrong way. They saw a man in the car, about 6 feet tall, thin features in his face, a narrow body type, and dark hair. They also saw him sometime later on the bridge not too far away from her house where the murder weapon was later found the next day. So that's why they think this man is either a suspect or a person of interest. They're mostly calling him right now a person of interest until he comes forward and either says why he was there or if he was there or not. They do have DNA, but have yet to match anybody in the system. So either he hasn't did another violent crime, or he just didn't do another crime after this. He would be in his about 60s now or late 70s when he did this crime in 1970, if he's still alive. All we know is that he could have died too. Nobody knows. She was stabbed. Carol was stabbed 14 times in her upper body, but the main stab wound that killed her was a cut to her throat. He cut her aorta nerve, and she bled out on her living room floor. And that's a very, very hard way to die. At the time, people felt safe. People felt like they could leave their doors unlocked. It will be fine. Nobody's going to come in and hurt me. But after this, the area changed. Olan started locking their doors, making sure everybody was home, always calling to make sure everybody's safe. Because this case is still unsolved after 50 years. When her husband called the state troopers, or the police that night, they sent over 50 state troopers to look for the murder weapon and to find evidence. They did find fingerprints inside her house that was not matched to anybody. They also have DNA that was never matched to anybody. They figured that that night the murder weapon might be a knife from her kitchen, because he was missing a knife in her kitchen. They didn't find it that night, but the following day, somebody that was walking across the bridge behind her house happened to see a knife in the little creek behind her house. The reason why the state troopers didn't see it that following day was because they were looking at the bank of the creek. They really thought that nobody could really throw the knife that far. They wasn't thinking about going on top of the bridge and figuring maybe somebody threw the knife off the bridge. And that's what happened. That's what they think that the killer did. He went to the bridge, and to get rid of the weapon, he tossed it about 300 yards into the creek. There is pictures, which I will post right here, of them collecting the knife as evidence. It was about a 12-inch butcher knife that was used to kill her. The family dog was actually unharmed at the time. He didn't bark, he didn't make a commotion the whole time Cal was being murdered. So the police think that Cal didn't really make a sound, and that she was probably taken by surprise when she was murdered. Because they put together that if she wasn't taken by surprise, she probably would have screamed, and the dog probably would have gone crazy. Even though the next closest neighbor was almost a quarter of a mile away from her, the neighbor always said that they were able to hear the dog bark when the dog got spooked. So for her not hearing the dog bark that day means the dog never barked. They don't know what stab wound was actually first, but I think the stab wound that really got her first was the stab wound to her neck. He probably severed that one first, and after that she couldn't scream. And he just started stabbing her over and over and over again until he reached the number 14 and said, you know what, until she finally died. Until he was pleased that she was dead and that she wasn't going to be alive to walk out of there. What the motive is nobody's idea. But they did rule out the husband. The husband actually does have an alibi. He was seen at his work all day, and that he never left his work once. And his DNA didn't match the DNA on the knife, nor any DNA that was found on her that day. They probably do have DNA that was taken from underneath her fingernails, but they just never released that information out. And that's what I'm thinking they're mostly getting the DNA from, is from underneath her fingernails. Her husband did say that the stepladder outside their house was turned over, and that it wasn't like that when he left for work that day. And again, the description of the suspect is a narrow-faced male, about 6 feet tall, either driving a red or maroon color fast type sports sedan. What's sad is that both her parents and her husband went to their graves never knowing who killed Carol Ann Fitzmaurice. Daniel died not even 2 years after Carol. He was driving his motorcycle one day on July 22nd and ended up getting into a bad motorcycle accident. He did not survive that accident. He is buried right next to his wife. And maybe somewhere up there he actually does have closure, because I do believe in heaven, and I feel that they met up there and she actually told him who murdered her. But we will never know who murdered her, and unless one of you guys come forward, or you know somebody who has a tip or something, because I will leave the tip hotline down below. This still is an open case. I will put the link the number right here. But if you do have information, please call the Bureau of Criminal Investigation at 716-373-2550. Again, I will link it below, but the number is 716-373-2550. The reference case number is SJS number 3021514. And as a recap, Carol Ann Fitzmaurice was 23 years old when she was murdered on October 20th, 1970. She was stabbed 14 times in the upper body and the throat. There was no sign of forced entry, no signs of sexual assault, and no signs of robbery. Her dog was unharmed at the time, and the neighbors didn't hear anything when the murder was happening. The suspect is either in his late 60s or late 70s. He is described as a thin, narrow man driving either a red or maroon sedan sports car. If you have any information, remember, nothing is too small to call in. It has been over 50 years since her murder. The information will be in the description box down below, and also as a pinned comment. Thank you for taking your time out of your day to listen to this case. And till the next time, this is New York Cold Cases. Thank you and have a good day. Bye!